Welcome to the Dub Dive. We're here to unpack your source material, pull out the key insights, and basically give you the shortcut to really understanding what's going on. Today, we're diving into a really iconic piece of bass gear. It's a pedal that kind of set a new standard for analog effects. The MXR M288 Bass Octave Deluxe. You'll often hear it just called the BOD.
Yeah, the BOD. It's one of those pedals that really proved analog wasn't, obsolete in the face of all the digital stuff coming out.
Absolutely. So our mission today, what we're trying to do is really extract the core ideas behind it, the specific tech, the innovations.
Right, the dual voice thing, how they designed it to be so popular and frankly so enduring for bass players. Yeah. It's still relevant today.
It really is. Now, you mentioned timing earlier. What was going on around 2009? Why was that the moment for MXR to drop something like this, a high-end analog octave for bass?
Well, it was definitely a strategic move. MXR, under Jim Dunlop, by then, they'd done more general effects before. But 2009, that was a big push, specifically aimed at bassists.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the M288, it wasn't just like replacing their older M103 octave pedal, which was much simpler. It launched alongside other heavy hitters, things that are now classics themselves.
Like the M80 bass DI Plus wheel.
Exactly, and the M87 compressor. So the message was pretty clear. This is serious, studio-level gear, but, built tough for the road. For working musicians.
Got it. Okay, let's get into the core of it then, the architecture. Analog octavers have their sound right, but the M288, it immediately did something different with those two separate sub-octave voices.
Right, two independent voices.
Yeah.
And you can blend those with your clean signal. I think the engineers realized that bass players needed more than just an octave down. They needed control over the texture of that octave.
Texture, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's why you've got those three main knobs. They're all crucial.
So first up is the dry control. Pretty straightforward, right? That's just the level of your clean bass sound.
Yep, keeps your articulation clear, your fundamental note present. Can't lose that.
Then we get into the octave sounds. First is growl. What's the deal with that one?
Okay, growl. This one's focused more on the mid-range of the sub-octave. It's warmer, kind of vintage voiced. The source material actually suggests they were looking at the classic Boss OC2.
Ah, the legend.
Yeah, that kind of slightly unstable but really musically rich tone. They were chasing that vibe. So growl is great for like melodic lines, even chords, because those mids help it cut through without getting all muddy.
Okay, so growl gives it warmth and presence in the mids. Then girth must be the low-end monster.
That's exactly it. Girth is all about that deeper, fundamental, like sub-bass frequency, pure low-end power. If you want to seriously fatten up your sound or get those massive, almost synth-like bass tones,
you crank the girth.
You crank the girth. And, being able to mix dry, growl, and girth just how you want them. That was pretty revolutionary for an analog pedal back then.
And besides the sound shaping, they covered the practical stuff too, right? The things players just expect now.
Oh, yeah. It's got true bypass switching, absolutely crucial today, so your tone isn't colored when the pedal's off.
Yeah.
Standard MXR Tough Box runs on a standard 9V supply. All the practicalities are there.
Right. But the magic is how that analog engine works, especially when you take it out live. Because there was always that problem with analog octaves, right? You dial in this huge sound at home or in the studio.
That was amazing.
And then the band kicks in, the guitars get loud, and poof, your massive low end just vanishes. It gets totally lost in the mix.
It's the classic sub-frequency issue. Lows just get eaten up by louder mid-range stuff. Yeah. Like guitars and snare drums. So, yeah, the big question for the M288 was, how do we give you that amazing deep analog tone and make sure people can actually hear it?
And their answer was, well, pretty clever, actually. That little switch, the mid-plus switch.
Yes, the game changer. The mid-plus switch basically kicks in a mid-range EQ boost. And it's not a subtle boost either. It's around plus 14 dB. Significant.
14 dB. That'll definitely make you heard.
Oh, yeah. Suddenly you're cutting through. But the really clever part, the thing that makes it more than just a simple boost, is hidden inside.
The internal trimpo.
Exactly. They didn't just give you one fixed frequency boost. Inside the pedal, there's this little adjustable trimpo. And that lets you choose which mid-range frequency gets boosted when you hit the mid-plus switch.
You gotta love that. I mean, imagine opening up your pedal on a dimly lit stage with a tiny screwdriver.
Huh. Yeah, it takes a bit of dedication.
But that dedication gets you serious flexibility.
It totally does. Because you can tailor the boost to your specific needs, your bass, your playing style. There are basically two main settings you dial in.
Okay, what are they?
You can set the boost at 400 hertz. That gives you a thicker, punchier, kind of throatier sound. Generally, that works really well for fingerstyle players who need that solid low-mid presence.
Makes sense. And the other option?
The other main setting is 850 hertz. That's higher up, obviously. Boosting here gives you a lot more presence, more treble cut, more definition on the attack.
So better for pick players or slap?
Yeah, exactly. If you're using a pick or slapping, that 850 hertz helps define the notes, make sure your octave tone isn't just a vague rumble. It gives it articulation.
Man, that internal pot is such a smart feature. It essentially makes the M288 like 2 pedals in one.
Pretty much. You've got your deep subby studio mode without the mid plus engaged, and then you hit that switch, customized to 400 or 850 hertz, and boom, you're ready for the stage.
Analog tone, but with almost digital-like utility in solving that mix problem.
Precisely.
Okay, let's talk performance. The big historical complaint about analog octavers, besides getting lost in the mix, was tracking. You play too fast, too sloppy.
And it glitches out, warbles, can't keep up. Yeah, horrible sounds.
How did the M288 deal with that?
It actually gained a really strong reputation for its tracking. For an analog unit, it's remarkably smooth, tracks cleanly down to a standard low E string, and, impressively, it's still usable on the low B of a 5-string bass.
Wow, for analog, that's pretty good.
It was a big step forward. Better filtering, better component choices in how it actually generates the suboctave.
But it still prefers clean playing, you mentioned. It's not foolproof like, say, a digital pitch shifter.
Right. Our sources point this out. It's still analog at heart. If your input signal is muddy, if your technique isn't clean, too many random harmonics, it can still get confused sometimes. You might get little glitches.
So clean playing is rewarded.
Definitely. Precise playing gets you the best results. But the payoff is that sound. It's deep, it's organic, it feels harmonically rich in a way that, frankly, purely digital octavers often struggle to match. They can sound a bit sterile sometimes.
Yeah, that organic quality is what people chase with analog. Now, speaking of that richness, let's loop back to the Boss OC2 comparison. You said the engineers used it as a reference point, and you mentioned headroom. What's the difference there?
Right, headroom. Basically, it's how much signal level the pedal can handle before it starts to clip or distort in an unpleasant way. Older circuits like the OC2, they had pretty limited headroom.
So if you hit it with a hot signal, like from active pickups?
Exactly. It could overload easily, clip the signal, sound kind of choked or muffled, especially on the attack.
Yeah.
The MXR guys, by using modern components, custom tuning the gain stages and filters, they seriously improved the headroom.
Okay.
So the M288 can handle those high output basses much better. It stays clear, even when you're dialing in huge amounts of that growl and girth. They kept the character of the vintage sound, but gave it modern clarity and robustness.
That makes a huge difference in usability.
Yeah.
Okay, let's make this practical for someone listening. How would you actually use these dual voices? Give us a couple of examples.
Sure. Okay, let's say you want that classic octave enhancement. You want your bass to sound bigger, fuller, but not obviously like an effect.
Subtle thickening.
Exactly. So you'd keep your dry signal pretty high, maybe even maxed out.
Right.
Then you just blend in the octave subtly, maybe growl around 9 or 10 o'clock for that warmth.
Right.
And a girth maybe a little higher, say 11 o'clock, just to add that foundational weight. It just fills out the bottom end without screaming, octave pedal.
Got it. And what about the other extreme? That really dense synth bass kind of sound.
Ah, yeah, the synth modern bass tone. For that, you flip the approach. You turn the dry signal down maybe just 25% or so.
Okay, minimal clean sound.
Right. And then you really crank up the growl and the girth. Push them past 3 o'clock, maybe even higher. The result is this massive, round, really vintage-sounding analog synth tone.
And that kind of sound plays well with other effects.
Oh, incredibly well. That dense tone is perfect for feeding into other pedals. Most common pairings are compressors to even it out, and especially envelope filters.
Like the MXR Bass envelope filter.
Yeah, put the BOD before something like that. You can get those huge, squelchy liquid synth leads. It transforms the bass completely.
Which brings up signal chain placement. Where does a pedal like this usually sit?
Well, you've got options. The standard analog approach is usually first in the chain or very early on. Right after your bass, maybe after a compressor, but before drives or modulation.
Why first?
Because octave pedals generally track the cleanest signal best. Putting it before distortion means it gets a nice, clear, fundamental note to work with.
Makes sense. Any other options?
Yeah, for more complex rigs, especially if you want maximum clarity, you can put it in an effects loop. That way, your main clean bass tone stays completely separate, running through your amp or main chain.
And the octave effect is blended in parallel.
Exactly. Keeps everything super clear. And for recording, or live sound to the PA.
DI integration.
Absolutely. It works great with a DI box. You put the DI before the pedal to send a clean signal, or after the pedal to send the full, affected, octave-blended tone directly to the mixing desk. Gives the sound engineer a perfect, high headroom octave sound to work with.
Very versatile. So we've established it's a great pedal, technically innovative, sounds fantastic. But what's the big picture? Its legacy. You said it was foundational for MXR's baseline.
It really was. The M288 kind of proved that you could overcome the old limitations of analog octavers. It really set the stage for MXR's other successful bass pedals that came later, like the M81 preamp or the M89 bass overdrive. And honestly, it forced other companies to step up their game with their analog offerings too.
So if we boil down its importance, its main contributions, what are the key takeaways?
I'd say there are three main things it really nailed, things that competitors hadn't quite managed to combine so effectively before.
Okay.
1. It seriously improved analog octave tracking, made it stable, usable even on a low B string, proved analog didn't have to be glitchy.
Right, number 2.
2, that dual voice system, the growl and girth. Giving players that level of control over the texture and frequency focus of the sub-octave was huge, unprecedented really.
And the third, which we talked about.
And 3, the mid-plus feature. That brilliantly solved the age-old problem of analog octaves getting lost live. It turned what was often a studio toy into a genuinely gig-ready tool.
So how does it stand up when you compare it directly to its main rivals? You've got the old classics and the modern digital contenders.
Well, yeah, the benchmark classic analog is the Boss OC2.
Yeah.
People love that sound. It's warm, mid-heavy, but the tracking is definitely weaker and struggles with headroom, like we said.
And digital.
On the digital side, you've got things like the newer Boss OC5. It's got amazing tracking, super precise, often hybrid analog digital circuits.
Yeah.
But some players feel it lacks a bit of that organic warmth.
A bit too clean, maybe.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
Or you look at something like the Electro-Harmonix POG series, like the Micro POG. Incredible tracking because it's digital pitch shifting, not octave generation. But it sounds much brighter, maybe thinner, definitely less analog or organic than the M288.
So the M288 really found a sweet spot.
It totally did. It managed to bridge that gap. You get the warmth, the organic feel of classic analog. But with much better tracking, and that crucial live utility from the dual voices and the mid-plus switch, it really offered the best of both worlds at the time.
Which explains why it stuck around and remains so popular.
Absolutely. And circling back to that growl voice, the fun fact about its origin kind of sums it all up.
The nod to the OC2.
Yeah, it shows they respected the history. The growl is definitely rooted in that OC2 vibe. But crucially, they didn't just copy it. They re-engineered it.
Right.
They took the core idea, but swapped out components, redesigned gain stages, tweaked filters, all to get better clarity, better stability, and especially that modern headroom. They kept the flavor people love, but fixed the technical limitations.
That's a great way to put it. So the M288's lasting success really comes down to blending that vintage appeal, the growl, with modern performance and practicality. The girth, the solid tracking, the mid-plus circuit, it made a strong case for analog's continued relevance.
It really did. And I think that's the final thought, maybe the provocative takeaway for you listening. The M288 was so successful at refining analog tech, fixing tracking issues, headroom issues, and delivering a sound players often prefer. It does make you wonder.
What?
Well, it raises the question. Are there inherent musical qualities in pure analog signal processing? Qualities that even the best digital modeling, no matter how accurate it gets, still struggles to really capture.
Like a certain warmth or response or feel.
Exactly. The M288 seems to suggest that maybe, sometimes, the old way, when refined and optimized like this, can still offer something sonically unique, maybe even superior. This is definitely something to think about next time you're plugging in and choosing your effects.